your business what you have to offer. If you want to know the best way to reach your customers and grow your business, consider this. Almost 40% of the country doesn't get local cable TV. Less than 50% of adults will open a paper today. But each week, over 90% of people over the age of 12 listen to the radio. How are you going to send your message? At CBS Radio, we're doing more to help advertisers reach their audience than ever before. With over 140 of the nation's hottest stations, on air and online, CBS Radio is the best way to reach your target audience and take your business to another level. CBS Radio. How far will you go?
We be under attack. Man the long knives. Prepare to be boarded. Arr! Flagship, starboard bow. What? No, not by the enemy flagship. By garbage. Me beautiful ocean be full of it these days. It flows in from rivers and drain pipes. Many of folk don't know that when they throw trash on the ground, it eventually makes its way into the ocean. How can I enjoy sail me bonny seas with all this trash in it? Why, there's soda pop bottles, plastic bags, even stinky leftover takeout. Fire at will, men! Lend us a hand by always recycling and disposing of your trash properly. If you don't, I'll make you walk me plank. Nah, just kidding. Seriously though, learn more what you can do to keep the oceans healthy at keepoceansclean.org. Brought to you by the Keep Oceans Clean Alliance and the Ad Council.
It's a tax trouble help show, chat about it. It's a tax trouble help show, chat about it. With our audits, collections, let's chat about it. Missing tax returns and tax breaks, let's chat about it. It's a tax trouble help show, chat about it.
The Tax Trouble Help Show, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on your computer at chataboutit.com. Chataboutit.com is the place to listen to new and exciting talk shows. Listen live and call us at 877-CHAT-212 at chataboutit.com.
So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview. You know, MrMedia.com, MRMedia.com. Drop by and check out the site sometime. Show is brought to you today by on iPhones, Android, Palm, and BlackBerry by the Stitcher app for mobile devices. You know, I could do this every day and I'd still screw up. You know what I mean, folks? You can also subscribe for free on iTunes and Blueberry. Mr. Media is also sponsored by thepartyauthority.us. Planning a wedding, mitzvah, or corporate event? For any and all occasions, call the Party Authority nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs. That's 1-800-342-5357, where one call does it all. So where was I before the commercial? Oh yeah, Mr. Media is recorded live from the new media capital of the world and home of everyone from American Idol finalist Michael Lynch to rockers Johnny Zoom Cheerlead Squad and death metal pioneers Deicide, Tampa Bay, Florida. So, Early in my career, I was the pop music critic for, respectfully, the St. Petersburg Times and then the Tampa Tribune. In that role, I had frequent contact with up-and-coming local bands that always believed in their heart of hearts that they would be the next big thing. A few of them, such as Savatage, the Johnny G. Lyon Band, the Headlights, and the Bobby Frist Band, even achieved a modicum of commercial and regional success at the time. But the thing that drove me crazy about almost all of them was one and the same. They knew and understood bupkis about the business they were in. They made horrendous deals with managers, nightclubs, promoters, and record labels. They put no effort into self-promotion, assuming that if they played great in their garages and warehouses, the world would know about them and beat a path to their door. I'd hear about this because many would complain when their appearances at local clubs or in concert weren't publicized in the paper. I'd ask, did you send in a press release or an announcement? No, came the standard reply. Everybody knows about us. Well, if everybody included mom, dad, and the stoner chicks down the block, maybe so. But the rest of us didn't know squat about them. So when Loren Weisman's new book, The Artist's Guide to Success in the Music Business, recently crossed my desk, it was an easy yes to having Loren on the show. Loren Weisman, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you, Mr. Media.
Good to have you here. Thanks for stepping in for us.
Oh, no problem. Happy to be here.
Loren, I'm admittedly about 20 plus years, maybe more, removed from being a music writer. But somehow I suppose that musicians haven't changed much. And if they had, you wouldn't have needed to write this book.
Not at all. You know, it's funny, even being 20 years removed, a lot of musicians are still following what they learned or what they watched 20 years ago and not realizing it's not the same game, it's not the same industry, it's not the same business, but the mistakes they're making are, well, 20 years too old.
Is it, what is the problem? Is it ego, or do they, do guys go into bands, and then women too, but mostly we think of guys, I think. Do they go into bands to escape doing business by the book? What's the excuse?
Some of it might be that escape, but a lot of it mixes in with delusions of grandeur. You see somebody on TV as you're growing up. You think, I want to play the arenas. I want to have the screaming girls. I want to have the millions of dollars, the houses, the yachts, the alcohol, whatnot. Nobody thinks about what's happening behind the scenes, what it actually takes to get there. And even their glorified heroes, a lot of times they don't know the stories behind those heroes, and that a lot of those heroes right now are pretty broke. I mean, if you've noticed, Bob, a lot of bands from 20 years ago are back out on the road right now, and I doubt that all of it's just being reminiscent and having fun. I think some of them actually need to be out there making money again.
I know when I was in college, the band story that we used to hear a lot of was about Cheap Trick. This was early 80s, that they worked like 350 nights a week on the road, and they built their rep that way. And, they're still out now, but they're doing things, I think, more the way they want to do them. But, that was hard work. It may not look like it when you see them come to your town and they're on stage, rocking out and, doing their thing. But when you think about them doing it 300, 320, 350 times a year, you got to have a commitment to, you got to have a good work ethic to pull that off.
Oh, it takes a lot more work than the average person thinks. Again, they see this image of relaxing on the beach and all the elements that almost don't have to do with music. And then there are musicians that just imagine I can practice my craft 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and then perform and live the life I want to. But today, it has to be a mix of business and creative. The two sides have to meet. Left brain has to hang out with right brain.
And the business has changed, I know, a tremendous amount in the last 5-10 years it was, you made money. It used to be records, and it was, audio cassettes and CDs and DVDs. And with the digital music revolution, people don't have to, it doesn't work that way anymore.
It doesn't, but it also, with the digital music, with the internet, there are a lot of other avenues that artists aren't as aware of, and if they could become aware of them, it would bring them profit. It would bring them revenue, which potentially could get them out on the road like Cheap Trick and playing more often.
So, okay, let's talk about that. I'm in a band. I'm listening to this conversation. What should I be doing that I'm probably not doing at the moment?
Right now, you need to be empowering yourself and learning about what the industry is. There are 40 million plus bands on MySpace, and a lot of these artists go with the mindset of, as soon as they hear this song, they're going to take me to the top. As soon as they see the band play live, we are just the most amazing thing. Everything's going to be taken care of. And that's a wonderful dream, but what these bands need to concentrate on is how are they getting to the point of being heard or being seen? It's not the music. Of course, the music is the foundation and the root, but it's the content, the graphics, the marketing, the promotion, the branding that's bringing people into a very oversaturated market to look at someone and say, okay, maybe they stand out. It really is about standing out initially from areas outside of music to get people in to hear your music.
Somebody in their 20s today, do they still think about that they have to be pure and not commercial and not with sponsors and marketing and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I remember. I'm sorry. I remember when Jovan, the cologne company, sponsored the Rolling Stones in the 80s, and that was a huge moment in the commercialism of pop music because, oh my God, they sold out. Yeah, well, they got Jovan to pay all their expenses on the road, put money in their pocket, and the world was never the same.
Unfortunately, licensing, sponsorships, endorsements are a crucial part of things today, especially for artists. If an artist can get 30 seconds of the end of a song or the middle of a song, even without vocals, licensed into a commercial, there's licensing money. If you can get a sponsorship from any of these companies so that you're showing up potentially in a movie or a TV show or anything, it's more opportunities. We're not living in the industry of 20 years ago, unfortunately, and even artists, John Cougar Mellencamp is a perfect example. He licensed that This Is Our Country song a couple years back, and I saw some reports that he made more on that deal than he did off his first 3 records combined.
Well, that's a great example. I was just thinking about Prince a few years ago, more than a few years now, when he took back all of his music rights. He allowed his contracts to expire, took back all his music rights, created his own digital kingdom. And then we've had other examples. The band names will escape me now, but there was the band that put out its album and let you pay what you thought it was worth. The digital opportunity. Just like I make my living as a writer. I see the digital opportunity to control my intellectual property, and I use the term loosely, but to control it and profit from it, far greater opportunity than it was when publishing was controlled by a handful of print publishers, or in the case of music, a handful of music publishers and record studios.
Oh, absolutely, Bob. I mean, when you think about it, though, it's comparing yourself to situations of how can it apply to you. For example, Prince can sit there and put up a digital album, but how much money was put into Prince over the last 25 years. The band, it's funny, the band you're thinking of is escaping me too. They put up their album, and you chose what you could pay for it, and yet they were so well known before that it didn't matter, that whether someone was spending 5 cents, $5, anywhere in between, they had that mass of people. It's getting out there and doing different things with the internet, such as saying, you know what, next Thursday, come visit the site. If you buy any piece of our merchandise, a hat, a T-shirt, this or that, you're going to get a free download. Or on this time, on this day, we're giving away a free demo of pre-production of a song from a while ago. Giving away certain things that musicians are so scared to do, especially today, can lead you to greater opportunities. But everybody thinks, I need to make back all the money that I put into this CD or this project, and I need to charge as much as possible. I mean, not going on a tangent, but people need to take the prices of their CDs down, especially with the digital revolution, to say, hey, here's $10 for 15 songs. You know, I do that. This band I saw the other night, $22 for 14 songs. I said, no way.
Yeah, a little wrong idea of commerce there. I'll give you an example that just happened today. I'm a user on a site called, I think it's Roadrunner. Oh, God, I'd have to think about what it's called. And now I'm sorry, I'm not giving them their due plug. But they sent me an email saying, hey, for the next, 24 hours, you can get a free download from a band called Stone Sour. It's S-O-U-R, called Mission Statement. Free download for like the next 48 hours. Follow this link, and I did. And because, I'm part of that community, that Roadrunner community or whatever it's called, I got the free download. I haven't listened to it yet, but I thought, what a great way to, get me interested in their stuff.
That's perfect. See, that's the kind of stuff that makes a band stand out in today's market. That's the kind of stuff that's going to lead people to check them out, want to hear more, and take a chance. Right now, money is so much tighter. Last week, 5.3 million albums were sold. That's it. That's the lowest. The news reported that was the lowest since 1991, but really it's the lowest since SoundScan started in 1991. Yeah. So it's actually lower for a lot longer back.
Well, let's take a quick break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to the Mr. Media Radio, and for those of you who have it, video interview with Seattle-based music producer Loren Weisman, who is the author of the new book, The Artist's Guide to Success in the Music Business. And we'll be right back.
I'll pick you up after school. Okay, I got it.
It's easy to take a day for granted. You and your family are connected by routine, and you stick to it. But what if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if your day's routine is disrupted, and you can't reach your family? Have you planned for that? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Today. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Ready.gov. This message brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
The odds of a young girl being discovered by an industry insider while singing to herself pumping gas? 1 in 300 million. The odds of the daughter of a clergyman from Severn, Maryland spending 11 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of selling over 40 million records? 1 in 800,000. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
This is Bob Andelman, and you are listening to the Mr. Media Radio interview with Seattle-based music producer Loren Weisman, who is also the author of the new book, The Artist's Guide to Success in the Music Business. Loren, I should have asked you sooner. I'll ask you now. Tell us a little bit about your own development from child cellist to drummer to producer.
I started the cello, this might upset you a bit, up in Massachusetts. So avid Boston Red Sox fan. I know you're probably a Tampa Bay Ray guy. Crossed over
the only thing worse than the Red Sox?
The Yankees.
Yeah, of course. See, there's something we can agree on. Go ahead.
Crossed over to trombone and found my way to the drums. Always had a fascination with a lot more of the behind-the-scenes stuff in the studio side of drums. Got involved with different tours, different studio work, and then a fair amount of ghost drumming where I would play on certain albums and clean up other parts for drummers that either weren't up to snuff, maybe had a little too much alcohol or something else for that matter. And you sign the non-disclosure, you sign the confidentiality. But the beauty of it and where I come from and where I wrote the book was seeing a wider spectrum of the music industry as a whole. And I'm not knocking, there are a lot of great books out there, but my experience went from blues to big bands to rap to metal to rock and everywhere in between, and seeing the different ways that things were produced, the different ways that people were spending money, the different ways that people were taking money. And after crossing over to production, the book started actually as a blog, and I was writing articles for artists that I was producing saying, you need to think about this, you need to work on that. Before we get to the studio, you have to take care of this. You need to think about that. It was a collection of things that began to form into a book. And then a number of friends said, this has got to get out for the industry. And, here we are a couple of years later.
What, as you're hearing from musicians, as they're seeing the book, hopefully reading the book, not just looking for the pictures, what are you hearing from them in terms of the areas that they're most interested in and most surprised by?
A lot of people, the ones that are a little bit more patient and have been through sort of the rigmarole, are starting to understand there is a business element that has to be attended to. You've got to look at what's going on in the contracts. If somebody walks up to you and hands you $10,000, there's something wrong with that. And there's going to be something in the contract that's going to take a percentage away. Right now, these bands are, especially in the book, they're realizing if I get all the help on the front side, I'm going to be paying for that, both as a loan with a high interest and percentages for the long term. There are actually bands out there that are making sustainable incomes for the rest of their lives, and yet because they're losing 80 to 90+%, they can't make a living on it.
Who would be a good model for an upcoming band of an act that may not be a number one selling artist, but they've figured out a way, and I have one in mind, but they've figured out a way to make a living, be comfortable, be in control of their destiny, of their art, and that's someone that you would say, hey, take a look at the way these guys operate.
I go kind of old school there and say something along the lines of Fugazi. With their format. Yeah, it's punk, it's wild, it's out there, but there's a lot more control. The funny thing is you look at some of these bands and they come off like we're all independent and it's all us, and they don't even realize behind the scenes what's being taken away until they actually get some of the accounting statements when they're asking questions of, where's the royalty? Where's the money from the tour? It's hard to pick an exact band of today. There are bands out there, but it's more important for the bands to say, what do I need to do for myself before I hand it off? The biggest thing and the biggest point I make in the book is think about the average person looking for a record deal. What they're asking for is saying, record me, produce me, mix me, master me, create all of my graphics, create all of my content, set up all my touring, make sure all the accounting is straight, take care of everything, which, in the end ends up being half the time $250,000 investment with a potential no return in 16 months. Now, a band today that says, what can we put together to come to the industry with and potentially go to a label, a publicist, a manager, having all those things in place and ready to go, and then say, we just need distribution, publicity, and maybe some touring support. That's where bands and every band and every style, it's a different story. There is no one right way to do it. There's so many different avenues and so many different ways. I would say steal the aspect of a certain way that Sting did this. Take a note from Soundgarden. Take Sean Mullins is another example. Putting all these things together and realizing how can this relate to me and work for me. I find that to be the best way to move forward or sort of set a foundation for any artist today.
Well, for the record, the band I was thinking of was Phish, Phish, which seems to have very strong control of their careers and what they're doing. Now, I haven't seen their bottom line, financial statement, but my sense of them is that
I'm
they have
pretty
a
sure
good
you're
handle
right.
on that. Yeah. Well, listen, folks, you can order Loren Weisman's new book, The Artist's Guide to Success in the Music Business, at great bookstores everywhere. Or, of course, you can find it online at mrmedia.com. Loren, I have two websites in front of me. You tell me. We have artistguide.net and, of course, Loren, and that's Loren, Weisman, Weisman.com. Is there a third place you'd want to send people, including Twitter or Facebook?
We have a Twitter, which is twitter.com/BGELLC, which is my music production company. It's Brain Grenade Music. Okay. And you can visit braingrenademusic.com.
Great. So you're all over the net.
We're all over it.
All right. Well, Loren, it was a pleasure talking to you. It's one of my favorite subjects, something I obviously have my own opinions on from experience. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thanks so much for having me, and go Red Sox.
Yeah, go away, Red Sox. Go Rays. I get the last word. I'm the host. Thanks, Loren. Bye-bye. And folks, for more original interviews with your favorite musicians and music writers, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. And you can now hear Mr. Media while you're on the go with Stitcher Radio. Stitcher is a free news and talk mobile application. The latest episode of Mr. Media is always available for you there. No syncing needed, no memory wasted. Available for your iPhone, your Palm Pre, Android phones, or your BlackBerry. Downloading is easy. Just go to Stitcher.com or check out the App Store for your individual mobile phone. And please take advantage of this great offer for Mr. Media radio listeners. Go to audiblepodcast.com/mrmedia to get a free audiobook download of your choice when you sign up today. Again, that's audiblepodcast.com/mrmedia for your free audiobook. Folks, you can follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, twitter.com/Andelman, or on Facebook, just search Mr. Media Interviews. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening, everybody.
This entire piece of music was played with only two instruments, a right hand and a left hand. Hands can do incredible things, but nothing compares to using them to help save a life with hands-only CPR. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. Hands-only CPR is recommended by the American Heart Association, and it's incredibly easy and effective. For more information on hands-only CPR and to make your own hand symphony track, visit handsonlycpr.com.